perception is reality, people will believe.
I'm a learner. Well, if I'm a learner, I can learn anything.
Sometimes in life, you just got to act like you have great faith. And if you keep acting like you have great faith, then it becomes more and more real. Fake it till you make it.
Well, welcome to the podcast today. My name is Jason Tonioli. I'm your host, and we are joined by one of the people that I will consider a very close friend that I've looked up to for years. And frankly, I am in the music business for a lot of reasons, but one of the biggest reasons is because of Jon Schmidt sitting here with me. And it's just interesting how life happens and things kind of interweave to get you to where we are. Jon, welcome.
Thank you.
So Jon is, for those if you aren't familiar with Jon, Jon is what I would call the piano guy of the piano guys. You guys have had incredible success over the years. I don't even know how many millions or billions of streams you've had with the videos, but I feel like I've had a front row seat in watching your career take off over the last 25 years, and can still remember the back when we were at the recording in your studio and you hijacked my sessions to record things. And it's so I'm super excited to kind of talk with you and just share your story with.
I know I feel so bad that I couldn't change that we couldn't change the name of the piano guys because it makes me sound like really narcissistic. uh, but we did try to change the name because Steve obviously is, you know, not a piano guy. Well, he does play the piano. He's actually so good. Like he's actually really good. But we were named the Piano Guys because we were trying to help Paul Anderson out, who was our buddy down in St. George. He owned a store called the Piano Guys. We were trying to help him out because he was my friend, and he asked me to make a video to help market his stuff. And then we made a few more, and then they started to take off, and then we contemplated changing the name of the channel, but we would have lost millions of views at that point. So poor Steve.
The cello guy. So but he gets to, for those that aren't familiar with Steve, he gets to play his cello, and you've even done lightsaber cello playing I've seen on some of your videos. So
Yeah, and
that's pretty cool.
sometimes the video doesn't even have a piano in it, and it's just Steve playing solo. And the funniest comments are thumbs up for the guy that doesn't even know what instrument he plays. It's good stuff. We have fun with it.
Well, it's been incredible to watch the trajectory. Really, you've been at the music thing for, gosh, 50 plus years now. I'm sure, growing up, and even in high school, you were doing music. The first time I ran across your music was actually when I was in Argentina. And there was some missionary playing on a piano, and he was using his whole arm, and I was like, "What in the world is he doing?" And it was
Cool. Wow.
it was so anyway. That was where I first was introduced to your music, which is kind of crazy. And then came back, and when I was working at the bank, had an opportunity to um, sponsor your original concerts, and
That was amazing.
so it was. But let's like rewind the clock back. I'm not sure that a lot of people.
And thank you for your help at the bank.
Well, it was great to see great talent and recognize. Let's rewind and like start at the very beginning though with, you as growing up as a kid playing piano. I think people, a lot of the times when we start this podcast, I'll just have kind of people share their origin story, how they ended up as a musician. But I think we need to rewind way back, and how in the world did you start out with the piano as a kid, and then when did you finally reach that first moment where you're like, oh, maybe I can do this as music instead of having a stuffy career as a professor teaching English or something random like that, right?
Yeah, I was the youngest in a really musical family, and it was just something that I had seen my older brothers and sisters do, and it just was a given. And I had a German immigrant mom and dad, actually, but one thing is a fact of life is that you don't argue with German immigrant moms. You will practice is, well, but she was so great. She was so great to make sure that I practiced, and the first few years was not fun. It's not fun at all, but if you have somebody helping you to do something every day, then if you have half a talent, you start to get good at it, and when you start to get good at it, then it starts to get enjoyable, and then you, it's sort of like a kid with a Nintendo game, and we didn't have Nintendos back in my day, so all I really had in this little house was a piano, and it was my outlet, so I'm really thankful for it.
Well, and it as you were playing through high school, when did you start writing songs and deciding, "Oh my gosh, I can improvise"? Because even back then, I mean, YouTube didn't exist. There was probably didn't even exist the fake books, or you didn't know what that was probably even
Mm.
as a kid
Yeah, I
either.
just studied classical. That's the only thing that I felt like or that my teacher made, let me feel like I could do. So if I wanted to play anything else, I had to learn it by ear. I didn't know. I wasn't smart enough to go to the music store and buy sheet music and all that. And if I did see sheet music, it seemed like the arrangement was always not great. It was too changed. I had a great friend who challenged me to learn Billy Joel's songs that were coming out. Billy Joel was just releasing albums, and he would put a lot of solo piano. Well, not a lot, but he would always include a track or two of piano songs, just him and a piano. And my friend thought they were so cool. And the eighth graders, I was in seventh grade, and the eighth graders, there's two eighth graders that learned how to play Billy Joel's songs by ear, and Mannheim Steamroller was just coming out with their very first musical endeavors. It wasn't Christmas music, it was just their first albums. If you look at their first albums on iTunes, they're so freaking cool. Like they're crazy, and like our high school got obsessed with Mannheim Steamroller. It was at every dance concert. It was at all the walk-in music rage when we'd go to the assemblies, and it was something that I had a brother 12 years older than me, and he bought their records. And I remember one day, and I think I was still in junior high, just sitting in his car and listening to his cassette tape that had Mannheim Steamroller on it. And I was so intrigued by this blatant mix of classical and rock and instrumental. And I was just totally captivated and inspired. And Billy Joel, and but then there again, if I wanted to learn how to play these things, um, I had to figure out how to do it by ear. And so I had a friend that would just kind of he was kind of my cheerleader and challenged me, hey, and just try learning this, like the eighth graders. If the eighth graders can do it, you can do it. Um, and so I would try to hear all the lowest notes and try to find them on the piano. And I'd try to go back, try to hear all the highest notes and find them on the piano. And then I'd go back and try to hear the low notes in between. I'd take it in literally 10-second chunks like that all the way through. Finally learned, but it taught me so much about theory. And I don't have perfect pitch. Um, I think I am a really good example of somebody who has uh, a smaller degree of talent that has been able to, you know, compensate or make it work, or I look at, like, you seen that Jacob Collier guy?
Oh, yeah, he's
I mean, like, holy
amazing.
cow, perfect pitch. And it's like, I've heard of sometimes artists have what's called the fourth cone, something where they can see extra color. He's a musician that has the equivalent of that. He has extra musical capacity. It's called perfect pitch. And he literally can learn whenever he's listening. His whole life he's been learning, just because he's been able to imagine the notes as he hears them. And it's insane. It's actually another level. It's like a whole different level. So, but I would say that most people in music are not Jacob Colliers. they are just, less talented than that.
As you say that, I heard the analogy the other day that, there's not a lot of people who can be a racehorse, and you might feel like you're a pig and that pig's never gonna be a racehorse, right? But
Yeah.
you can certainly teach that pig to run really fast if you work hard enough with it,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so when I heard that, I'm like, "Gosh," I feel I think being willing to be somebody who learns puts you in a place where even if it takes you 50 or 100 years, you can continually learn and get better. I've loved as I've shared my piano music, and I'm sure you get the same thing, is people love working at a song and being able to learn to do that. But if you come into something with the attitude of, "Oh, I can't do that," or "I'm not a piano player," or "I can't," when you say or decide that you are or are not something, all of a sudden, it kind of frames who you are. But if you take on that attitude that I'm a learner, well, if I'm a learner, I can learn anything. And even no matter how long it takes. I mean, one of these days you're going to take a piano up, I'm sure, and stick it on the moon, and you'll do the first music video up on the moon. But people would think you were crazy, but the attitude of I can learn to do this, or that attitude's going to take you a lot further in anything you do in life, whether it's music or anything in your career, right?
Yeah, so true.
So, well, that's amazing. So through high school, you started writing some stuff out. Did you start like using pencil and manuscript paper to write the music out? I mean, that's how I started, was on paper. I didn't write any music out on a computer program for years. So I'm
Yeah.
curious how
I
you learned
just
to do
I
that.
just memorized it, and,
Okay.
um, I had to write something out for a reflections contest once, and, uh, that was crazy. I
Did you win?
needed help. I got the help of the school music teacher.
Okay.
Yeah, what really taught me a lot about how, reading and music works is when I started to teach piano at age 16, and then especially when I started to transcribe. One of my piano students was a computer whiz, and he's like, "There's this thing, if you just come over to my house, play it into my keyboard, there's this thing on my computer that just prints it out." And I'm like, "Holy cow, that sounds cool." He finally talked me into doing it, and I think a month later, we had my first book, and it's all thanks to him. And you learn so much as you're, taking what at first is just, you know, the dots are kind of put in the right place, and then you have to fix all of the problems. Like, it doesn't know what hand played it, for example. It just gets it all, and then you have to go through and tell this dot goes up and this dot goes down, and you know timing on this is wrong, and that's where I really learned so much about the theory and stuff like that.
As you do that, and just thinking through my experience, when you have to click on the dot, as we'll call it, and make it go up or down, all of a sudden you zero in on that one chord or those notes that are used. And I think there's way more thought that goes into, I mean, yes, you can memorize it and you can play it in and it's fine, but I've found that when I slow it down and just hear the chord and you're clicking, maybe you're clicking one note at a time, there's so much more harmony and things that come out, or stripping out the complicated, that sometimes you just, put lots of runs in, and it, the beauty sometimes gets lost. I think there's actually a lot of value for musicians to suffer through that, you know, typing in the dot one at a time type of
Helps you
experience.
see it in a new light.
Yep.
Similarly, reading sheet music is a different experience than learning something by ear. The things that you realize in doing one thing versus doing the other thing. So,
Well, and then writing it out is a whole nother, it's just a whole nother level
yeah,
where
then
you
you
now,
realize other things with that, everything is a different perspective. So,
and I think, as we've gone into once you go into the recording studio, there's a whole nother level of learning. I had the privilege of sitting on the back couch and just watching from afar a little bit several times as you were recording in songs. And frankly, it's to this day, I still I thank you for that. You don't even know that. I mean, thank you for letting me kind of be a fly on the wall, but watching the detail of that note's too loud, or I want that a little bit louder here, or I'm going to go re-record that thing,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and I think a lot of people when it comes to music, they think we just go into the studio and you magically play in the song, and it's just like boom,
Well,
there it is.
I totally used to think that. I used to think that, um, if I went in and punched in and fixed something, that it was not having integrity. And, I just realized that it's a matter of, economics, to try to keep trying to get it all in one take would take so long, and the stress of that would actually make the final product not be what you intended, not be what your musical intentions were, So I think musicians, by necessity, have to use the tools of the studio to communicate what the picture is. What is your idea? And and try to make the idea happen. And it's not a question of the question is, can I make the idea in my head happen for the listener? It's not a question of, can I perform flawlessly? It's a whole different interest. And I even have heard that even classical pianists, that if you were to hear them play live, you wouldn't hear a mistake. You wouldn't hear them miss a note. But even they, when they're in the recording session, will punch in and say, I wish I would have played that note louder. I wish I would have, and they'll punch in. Maybe some of them are absolute purists, but that's rare. So, and it's an interesting question with AI. It's an interesting question. Like literally, in the old days, um, people probably thought it was a lie when the microphone was invented to start using that in performance. They would say, no, that's a lie. You're lying to me because that's not what you actually sound like. But now it's just a fact of life. It's not, it's, yeah, it's sort of a lie. Actually, the recording process is sort of lying to people. It's, they believe that you played that in one take, and I don't know how to keep telling them that no, that's a false assumption. You just hope that by now people understand, yeah, when people use a microphone, it's a lie. People go into the studio, it's a lie. And it's
But
just the way it is.
the thing I've learned with many studio sessions is you go in with that idea, but you have the idea and you think you've got it figured out, but all of a sudden you have other people that have their ears and their opinions, and just these different ideas all of a sudden start coming together. I'm sure you've seen that even with the piano guys where you got your video guy, the cello guy, the piano guy, you guys are all kind of collaborating on those things. And as you know, in those sessions when you with Jake and Chuck and others that you've collaborated with, the I just
And
remember.
the minute another human walks in the room, I want to, if they have a strong opinion, I want to hear what they have to say, and maybe you could edit in that I made it sound very devious when you say, when you go out into the recording studio, it's a lie. It's it's a lie of necessity that everybody has to subject themselves to. That's the way I would say it. So maybe you could edit that in. And there are lots of things like that in life. There are lots of things like that in life. Um,
So I think as I'm thinking about recording studio sessions and even in life, that bringing these other people and opinions into that and being open to that as artists is important. But the whole idea of being a pure one time recording or one time take, it just life's not that way, and neither is a
Sometimes you get
great
one
song.
take. Sometimes,
Sometimes you do,
yeah, and
but
then
I
then
think
it's epic.
If it happens, I've got 1 or 2 that's happened that way, and I think you're like, "Oh my gosh, that was it," but it rarely is. There's always that one little thing that you can tweak or make a little bit better or, approach it a little bit different way, right? So so let's talk a little bit about your kinda as you were taking off in your career and you go through high school and you did that first book. What was that trajectory like? And to starting to do concerts for people, when like, explain that, 'cause I don't think a lot of people understand, okay, you did 1 book, but was your goal just to share a couple 100 copies and that was it? Or, did you really think this was something that people would wanna play?
Yeah, I I was just kind of having fun with music, I was sort of the, um, assembly entertainer at Highland High School. I entertained on the piano and figured out goofy stuff to do, and played some serious stuff
Mhm.
too, and, when I got back from my mission, uh, that, uh that I went on for my church at age 19, from 19 to 21, um, somebody at, uh, Highland High School approached me about doing a fundraising concert to raise money for the school choir. If I'd come back and just entertain, like, a lot of them still remembered, they were younger when I was still going to school, or when I was still performing there, and so they're like, "Come back and perform again. We'll sell tickets." And um, I had written probably 20 songs by that point in my life, and I thought this will be fun. I'll just, you know, be like the old times. And they sold 200 tickets, and I just had recorded a cassette tape of some songs, and I thought, I should go make some copies of this. And so I made like 40 copies of it, and I thought, man, that'd be so cool if I sold like 2 or 3 of these tonight. And all 40 of them sold. And I was just like, what just happened? I mean, it was just like, it was the biggest shock. And I was so excited to think that 40 people might be listening to my music. And um and then East High heard about this, and they had a kid that uh had an accident at Lake Powell and was paralyzed. So the whole school was rallying around this kid that everybody loved and trying to raise money for some medical equipment. And they asked me to come and perform, like, so random. So all of a sudden, here I am on a stage with a packed house, and I bring my cassette tapes, and again, just sold so many. And that was something I was just kind of doing on the side. And then Olympus wanted something, and then I think about a year after that, I rented a high school and put on my own show and charged like $5 a ticket, and
Mhm.
we had over 1,000 people show up. And then some guy heard of what I was doing from back east, and he brought me out to Washington, DC to perform some benefit concerts for the homeless. And I sold more cassette tapes there than I did locally, which I was just like, that made me think. I was like, what is going on? And, it was just fun, just a hobby. I did not want to be a musician. I had heard uh, people who had gone into music and what a train wreck it was, and I was just dead set against it. I did not want to do that to my family. I didn't want to impose that on my wife. So the plan was just doing it for fun, and it just kept growing. And in somewhere in that process, I think 2 years after my first concert, I was I was teaching piano to you know, that computer whiz kid, and then we put out the book, and So there was already interest, there was already like a somewhat somewhat of a name. I think I had already uh no, I'm getting confused. I think I had already played at Kingsbury Hall once because somebody said stop playing at high schools, if you play at a legit hall where big names perform, everybody all of a sudden thinks you're a big name. And it's so funny because again, you're just fooling people. You're people, that you're making people think that you're a big name, and it's a lie. You're not a big name. But all of a sudden, people thought I was a big name because I had performed at Kingsbury Hall, and all of a sudden, uh, KUED Channel 7 at the University of Utah. No, no, the Utah Symphony heard about that show, and they were looking for local artists to be included in a summer concert series that they were doing at Deer Valley. So
Mhm.
they had a headliner, and then they wanted a few local artists to be in the same show. And they picked me because they thought I was a big name. I mean, how crazy. It's just crazy. Um, and then when KUED Channel 7 at the University of Utah heard about that, they're like, well, let's get this guy and let's do a televised concert. Like I had a televised concert on KUED, and I was living in a basement apartment, so poor, so not famous. So I mean, it was crazy, crazy. That was like in the first 3 years, and
Here's one of the things I don't know that you even recognize this, but in those early days, you were willing to go do these concerts. You were willing to say yes and go serve, and it wasn't about you trying to be a big deal or, you were out trying to help others and serve others, and sounds like you were teaching piano lessons, and it sounds to me like a lot of these original things were came out of service, and like even the promotional stuff I can still remember you coming. I mean, I'm north of you up in the Ogden area, and one of the very first times we interacted a whole lot was you were at a little high school for a mini concert for a piano teacher that had like 50 piano students, and they rented out Bonneville High, and there was probably 100 people there. I can still remember we were playing on stage upside down on a 2 piano duet together, and there was I don't even you probably made 100 or $200,
yeah,
I mean, it was one of those that was a if you were looking at things from a financial standpoint, it didn't make any sense. I mean, I remember you coming to Roy High, playing on the most out of tune piano, and you had the most positive attitude. I mean, it was awful, like, the piano was awful,
yeah.
you
We
probably
raised
remember
money.
it.
We raised money for a lot of choirs,
Yeah,
and it
and
was fun. And then I would just sell. I'd do it for free for them, and then I'd sell. Uh, by then it had become CDs, but I'd sell CDs and music books after, and that was totally worth it for me.
yeah.
So
Well, no, and what's interesting as you're sharing this, and I guess the lesson for any musicians or somebody thinking, "Oh, I wanna be like Jon Schmidt and piano guys," it's
said no one ever.
but the learning thing is, you were serving your face off for years and years and years, and I think, you know, good things I mean, good things happen to people who do good things for other people. I mean, it's a thing, and I think it's you still to this day, I'm sure you'd give the shirt off your back to help anybody, and
Amen.
that
Try to
attitude
live.
still
I'll try to live up to that.
right?
Or my
So,
there you go.
eh,
I'll try to live up to that.
so with the, I'm just kind of fast forwarding. You had the books, and you were starting to do this, and I remember. I want to say it was probably 2002, sometime in there around the Olympics, and I was working at Bank of Utah, and I can still remember some client. It was Ray Kimber came into the bank and had suggested we'd talked about doing a concert for our clients at the bank, and I was the marketing director there at the time, and one of our clients said, "Hey, you should reach out to this Jon Schmidt guy, and you got to talk to this guy Chuck Myers. He can maybe connect you with this." But my guess is probably it was the same time when all of this stuff was happening with the Bravenel Hall and some of these other concerts. But first time we actually met was at a Cafe Rio, having lunch together with Chuck, and Chuck had this grand idea that we were going to have a sponsor of your concert. And essentially, if from your perspective, it was like,
You
okay, they're
sure it
going
was
to,
Cafe Rio? Because Cafe Rio was invented probably 15 years ago, 20.
it would have been maybe it was 2004 or five, but I remember that day. It was up in North Salt Lake. Chuck was there.
It was
It was my
Cafe
first.
Rio?
It was first time, my first time at a Cafe Rio ever. I'm walking through.
Okay,
It was
that's
delicious.
cool.
So you and I had my first Cafe Rio experience was with you,
No way.
and Chuck. But his idea, and I think this is another lesson that people could learn, is the getting a corporate sponsor. So the whole idea Chuck had was, okay, the corporate sponsor can come in and essentially shoulder the entire burden of doing this concert. And
Mm,
so there's zero risk to the artist to do the concert. And all the artist has got to do is give some tickets to their clients and let them come and fill those seats. But essentially, I think it was a brilliant idea that I think more musicians today probably ought to consider is like reach out to some of these businesses and say, hey, I'm going to do a concert and I'll give you 50 free seats or 100 free seats or whatever number it is. Would you be willing to pay the 1,000 or 3,000, 5,000, whatever the venue cost is? And you make it about, make a big deal about that business. And all of a sudden, that business thinks it's the coolest thing ever. And they're able to put butts in seats for the concert that you needed to fill 1,000 seats at. And so they're actually helping you spread the word without having any risk. I don't know that concept I think was absolutely brilliant back in the day. And it was a complete win-win-win across the board for I think everybody when we so anyway, I just thought that that was a very unique way to start filling seats, and my hope is being the guy on the business side, it was awesome for us. Like it was, it gave us an excuse to get people together and do an event, and we I think we had 100 or so seats that we filled up for you, and you could
that's
then not
awesome.
have to stress about nobody showing up because you at
Yeah.
least had people coming, right?
Yeah.
So so as things started to progress in there, I mean, were you when did you go full time and what was that tipping point that made you decide, "Oh my gosh, I can make a career of this?"
Yeah. Well, when Michelle and I got married, I had just graduated from college and my plan was to go back and get a master's in business because I graduated in English, which can't really feed a family. So I was going to go get an MBA and probably do something I didn't know what the plan was, probably do something entrepreneurish. But we we just prayed, we just prayed like what would God want us to do with our life? And it was just a really clear it was probably something we needed. It was very clear and repeated um, spiritual nudges to do music. And it is a decision that had to be made with Michelle. It's not something that I feel like could have ever um, worked if I was just making that decision um, and imposing it. So I'm a huge advocate of, you know, husbands and wives counseling together about everything. And everything is joint. The money is joint. It's the career is joint. The parenting is joint. Like everything is joint. And I I there's no doubt in my mind that we made a decision based on the question of God, what do you want us to do with our life? And I think that's a powerful question for anyone to ask, both individually and as married couple. You know, individually, what would you want me to do with my life? And as a couple, what would you want us to do with our life? And I do believe then that puts you in a cool place where again it can be an act of devotion. You know, everything can come back to um, trying to be a benefit to uh, your fellow beings, which I don't know if there's anything more fulfilling in life than to feel like um, God used to work through me to be a benefit to others. And I think that is just the ultimate. I think that's the thing that everybody is searching for, and they don't feel fulfilled as they could um, if they take life in more of a self-centered approach. What how can I benefit myself? How can I what's benefiting me? You know what I mean? When you change those being surrounded by mirrors where everywhere you turn you see yourself, and you can switch that and surround yourself with windows where everywhere you turn you see somebody else. I think that is cool, and I think it's cool when you sense that from a performer. Can you can we can all think of performers when they're on stage, it feels like they are all about the audience. It's just that's their joy. That is
Yeah.
their fulfillment. It's all about, and you can feel a contrast when you feel like there's a performer on stage and they're surrounded by mirrors and it's all about them. I mean, it's just, and I think it carries over to anything. It's not just performing. Um, and I think when we discover that, that's when become lucky. That's when we become that's when things level up, in my opinion. So, you know, it's like what you were saying, you know, then you just your whole life becomes a cycle of what go, you know, what goes around comes around, because that's your passion. It becomes, I mean, not that we did it perfectly. I don't, you know,
With
we're trying.
musicians, I think of this pursuit of success, and like when I started this podcast, I called it the successful musician, and then one of the things I've asked a lot of the people who I have on the show is, what does success mean to you? But it's been interesting to get 80 plus responses from people that I would consider successful in life or successful in a music career, but the reality is like this pursuit of financial success or pursuit of fame or pursuit of audiences or lots of song plays or YouTube video views, that success is like this fleeting moment. It's almost like somebody lifted your hand up and like, look, I got the million views or the $1 million or whatever thing it is. And that trophy you win or the gold medal that you get on top of the podium feels really good at the time. But as soon as it's over, as soon as you step off that stage, it's kind of like, you know, and I think that you use the word fulfillment, and I think the evolution or the leveling up of that success is really when you can, be filled, and it does become about the other people. I think of like coaching soccer.
Hmm.
Or just as parents, when we've done that thing as a parent, but there is nothing better than watching your kid accomplish something or be successful, have that, hand raised, for whatever it is that they're interested in, or, watch that your kid play piano in the recital and do good. They worked really hard at the thing and they did it. For me, it's like the adrenaline rush or the success, I guess those positive feelings are 100 times better when I see people around me experience that. And
Yeah.
and I don't know if you've seen that as well. I mean, you talk about seeing it and making it about the audience.
Well,
Uh,
you know who I don't you feel like Chuck is the ultimate mentor in this? I mean, like that is something you and I have that we just, I mean, I can see it in your eyes. You just think of Chuck and what we've learned from him. Is it is it just awesome? Like
well,
he's a literal angel in my life. Like literal angel in my life.
and you know what I
Things I've
think?
learned from him is just like
It's not
unreal.
only the
His
the
gifts.
learning, but I think of like my first interactions with him, and I was sitting in his recording studio on his piano, so, I mean, you can picture exactly where I was sitting at.
Yeah.
I don't think you were there, but I played something on the piano, and I mean, I played piano okay, and I'd written a couple Reflections contest songs, and I'd
Same
written a
here,
few songs.
buddy.
But it was so interesting, like, Chuck Myers is literally he's working on, I think it was Toy Story 2 or Finding Dory, like, we're talking, like, biggest Disney projects of the time, that he's working on, and I'm sitting at
He's a
his
genius.
piano,
He's a freakish genius.
and so, I mean, if you can just kinda picture this, and I am feeling so underqualified to even sit at his piano,
Yeah, same
and
here.
so
I totally relate.
you can picture this, and so he was in this room, and I played this song, and this guy that's this Chuck is he listening, he's like, says, "That's beautiful," and I immediately went and I kind of apologized for the song. I'm like, "Well, it's not very complicated, and it's not, it's not this, it's not that." And I think a lot of times our initial reaction is when we perform, "Oh, well, I wasn't perfect," or "I wasn't," and I think this isn't just a music thing. This is just life in general. Is I wasn't perfect, or I wasn't good enough. And Chuck told me, he says, "Don't ever apologize for your music." And I says, "Well, it's not very," and I'm still trying to apologize to him. "It's not very hard. It's not difficult enough, and I could do more frilly things." And he basically told me, he says,
Enya.
"Oh, right." Well, but he told me, he says, it's harder to write music that's easy to play,
Mhm.
that sounds beautiful, than it is to just
Cool.
write lots of notes on the page.
That's cool.
And
That's cool.
and and I think just applying that to life in general is like, you know what? Those little tiny things, when you can do the thing and just make it so simple that it feels good, not just, that, yes, it sounds cool to do the Rachmaninoff chords and all of that, but when you can like dial it back at the core of what matters with the music, or even just what matters in life, with family, or taking time with your kids, or you talk about doing things together with your spouse, those things that actually matter, I think make all the difference. And with Chuck, I've watched him build people up over and over again. I was there another time. He was working on a Dance Dance Revolution song, and he would bring. You may have even been there some of the times he was doing. He'd bring in these artists to just sing, and he would make them feel like they were worth $1 million. Like Taylor Swift didn't exist at the time, but you would have thought that he'd brought Taylor Swift into his studio, and they'd go in there singing, and they would sing like they were, Taylor Swift level people,
He
and
brings
and
out
he
the
would just,
best in people. That's
oh, it's amazing.
such a cool gift. Such a
Absolutely, and
cool gift.
I've always tried to learn from that and give back, in watching him bring out the best in people.
Mhm.
I think a lot of it is he helped people believe in themselves,
Yeah.
and he
He's
believed in
always
me.
he's always in service mode. He's always, "How can I bless this person? How can I use the gifts that God has given me to bless this person I'm with?" He's constantly in that mode.
Well,
It's
I'm curious.
crazy.
You probably, I mean, I just shared a couple of stories there. What you've probably seen a couple of instances. I mean, people can learn so much from these Chuck interactions that, nobody other, there's just a few of us that get to do that. And it's changed our lives. Like I still 20 years later can remember those moments.
Yeah, for sure. Just just like you say, the gift to encourage, the gift to believe in yourself, the gift to, um, value to have, respect for whatever degree of talent that you have, and to believe that you can develop it and improve it, and just amazing suggestions, amazing knowledge, amazing experience. Um, I do. I feel like he is, uh, just a music genius. I do. Yeah, I'm really in awe, and the things that I've learned from him over the years is insane. It's just the biggest blessing, and I feel like, we're all led to people like, even that guy that helped me with the computer and helped me with that book, and we became partners, and I feel like that was a total blessing in my life, a total angel. I think God sends angels into our life. And I don't feel stupid talking like this at all because that's another thing I learned from Chuck. He just says, you know, what he thinks, and he doesn't care if it sounds too um, religious.
Mhm.
Just says what he thinks, and it's awesome.
Well, so I'm thinking of time in particular, and this was really when I think your career really took off. If you think about the Taylor Swift Coldplay
Hmm.
video, and
Yeah,
I can still remember. I'm curious the story behind the recording of that song, and then the video that I don't even think exists anymore. I don't think you can even find it online. But share that story of how that came about.
yeah, that was. Um, yeah, I think somebody bootlegged a copy that's still on YouTube somehow, but um, we yeah, my kids were huge Taylor Swift fans, and it was at a time in history when the whole world was still listening to the radio, and that meant that the whole world was listening to the same music, which is not the case anymore. Everybody kind of has their own little whatevers now. Um, but there was a really cool moment when there was this unity in music, and um, Taylor Swift's love story was so intriguing to my kids for some reason. They just thought that it was the coolest song ever, and they would get so hyped when there was this key change and there's hope, and the girl comes back and says, "My dad says we can get married." And I don't know why. It was just, they were in junior high and elementary school, and they just thought it was so cool. And I was seeing this new thing called YouTube, and people putting cover songs on YouTube that was called acoustic, acoustic covers was this thing that I was seeing people doing, and I thought I got to try an acoustic cover. I just had this idea, and um, it was my kid's favorite, and I wanted to focus on the aspects of the song that they thought were cool, and um, came up with something that I feel was really special. And as I was trying to end it and figure out how to end it, I was struggling with the ending, and I'm like, what if it went into another song? Um, what if it went into another song that my kids like? And it was a Viva La Vida by Coldplay, and I was like, that's the weirdest idea. But I had done it with Pachelbel and U2, and so I had put out a song called Pachelbel meets U2, and Steve had helped in the recording, and we brought Steve into the recording session, and he had done some really cool cello things that I didn't know a cello could do on Pachelbel meets U2. And by then, Steve was playing a lot on my solo shows, and um, he started off playing one song, and then it developed into like 6 or 7 songs, and one of them was this Pachelbel meets U2 song, and the audience just loved it, and we really got intrigued with this whole idea of this meets that, this meets that. You had Pachelbel meets U2, and then it turned into Love Story meets Viva La Vida, and then we did the thing Michael meets Mozart, um, and we just I remember reading something that's a real intriguing thing to people when they see two things that they like that are that are mashed together. And so um, that thing that I read about it, I think inspired the idea and helped me think, well, maybe it won't be so weird. And we recorded it and got really good feedback, and then we're like, we should perform it in front of camera, and we filmed it. And Steve had started playing with a kick drum, which was kind of unusual, a cellist playing with a kick drum. And then when we hit Love Story meets Viva La Vida, that just everything got really orchestral and there was some cool bass that came in, and I remember putting on the YouTube video this little thing that said activate subwoofer now, and it's like I like inserted these little um messages as people watched the song. And it's really interesting because the messages that I rigged into the song as people were watching it, I saw other YouTubers copy it afterwards, this whole idea of after the song is over, talk about the inspiration of the song, which we did. We did this little tagline, and I'm like, my little daughter, and blah, blah, blah. We released that thing and it blew up. It went crazy. It really helped that we had a mailing list of 30,000 people that we could say, hey, could you guys do us the biggest favor? Share this link, this thing that you click on, and the video will start playing. Share that link with everybody in your email address book, because nobody was really on Facebook yet. So people did that. Facebook hadn't really been invented, but we got 30,000 people to do us a favor and share it with everybody in their address book, and it just blew up. Just blew up overnight. All of a sudden, uh, one thing that was really cool is internet websites. Um, there was, everybody had a website in those days, and people were like take wanting to put links on their websites because this is this new cool thing. Just click this thing and a video starts playing. Um, and I remember even just like this bodybuilding site put our link, and like people would leave, reaction comments like, "Whoa!" And all these bodybuilders, this is so cool, and then they would share it, and then people would share it, and that's how things just blew up. And all of a sudden, people in Indonesia thought I was famous, which was a lie. It was absolute. I was a regional artist. I had a following in my region, Idaho, Utah, Arizona, down into California, up into Oregon. That was it. And all of a sudden, people all over the world thought I was famous. It was the weirdest thing, like overnight. And we were getting concert requests from Indonesia within weeks, like from
Wow.
all over the world. It was the weirdest thing. And then we got a message from Taylor Swift's lawyer, and they said that we had done the permissions incorrectly, which we thought, just call Harry Fox, fill out a form for Love Story, fill out a form for Viva La Vida, good to go. So we thought we were all set, and that lawyer informed us, no, this is when you do a combination that then becomes a specialized work called a derivative work. You need a totally different permission process for that, which requires permit, permission from the artists. And we at first thought, we'll just pray that this dilemma gets solved. And after trying to solve it, it just became clear that we just had to take it down, and this would not solve. We would not get permissions. We would probably not even be able to get a hold of the people that could have given those permissions. And it was one of the hardest things I've ever been through, because we thought this is going to put us on the map. And I remember as Michelle and I were praying about it, we we were comforted, like, gonna turn this lemon into lemonade. And coolest thing is, you know, maybe if that would have happened, then the piano guys would never have happened. We would have just kept doing it on our own, and joining forces with the piano guys made things happen that never could have happened on our own. There's no way. When you bring the four partners that we had together with all of our different abilities and um, contributions, it was it was crazy. It was absolute craziness. And 3 billion hits later, none of that could not have happened There's no way I could have done that on my own. There's just no way.
Yeah.
And 100 videos, and it's crazy. So
Well,
I probably would have in the 11 years that have, no, it's been about 15 years since our first video. I probably would have been able to put out maybe 30 videos tops, tops. But 100 videos, and some of the concepts of those videos I could have never dreamed up in a billion years. It is a result of a genius named Stephen Sharp Nelson. The guy is a freakish genius as far as concepts for video, you know, and working with Paul, and he's got pianos and he's got money and he's got crazy ideas of putting them on places. I never ever would have even gone there.
well, I still remember we at a Christmas concert, um, talking with you about our helicopter that we'd hired here in Ogden. I don't know if you even remember this, but Chuck had actually we'd filmed the Amazing Grace video up in the mountains up above Salt Lake. Part of that video shoot was a tribute to my dad, but we hired a helicopter because drones didn't exist.
Yeah.
They took the doors off the helicopter. I nearly killed Chuck. I don't know whether you knew that part of the story or not.
Gee.
He nearly died in Ogden Canyon in the helicopter.
Whoa.
But Chuck, in his effort to go serve, so Jake and Chuck and his son got in this helicopter and they were filming out both sides of the helicopter for video because drone footage, again, didn't exist at the time. They flew up Ogden Canyon and he wanted to get the mountain getting the sunset so that as if you go up and down in the helicopter, you could kind of create a little bit of a sunset behind the clouds. And as they were doing that with the pilot, they lost lift in the helicopter, and they ended up falling in the helicopter, and it got lift. Like, you'd have to get the story from Chuck, but from what I understand, like they were basically touching the tops of the pine trees in Ogden Canyon. And in the story I've heard, the pilot went ghost white and he did nothing but just do the regular flight up around Snow Basin and back down after that. But I remember sitting with you at the concert saying, you've done all these cool videos, but you've not done a helicopter yet. And I want to say it was like 3 months later, you guys actually took the helicopter and hauled it to the Red Cliffs down. I mean, and that one was just like, oh my gosh, she just one upped me 100 times over. That's the coolest thing ever.
I'm glad to make you realize that I was not trying to one up you.
No, I was thrilled. It was awesome.
To film that helicopter shoot on a golf course. We were on I-15, and it was supposed to be shot on a golf course. And we get a call from Paul Anderson, and he says, "My friend's got a helicopter. Should we shoot this at on top of a cliff?"
Absolutely.
And we're like, so I'm glad you don't need to feel like I'm like trying to one up you.
No, I thought it was hilarious because I was more just teasing you at that concert, and I thought, well, you've done, because you did the stuff you guys were doing. It was so cool to see the success, and I was just more in jest and, oh, you haven't done a helicopter yet, and boom, there. Next thing we know, we got Paponi coming out, and that I still think that's the
unless
coolest
you
music
talk to
video
Paul, it had nothing to do with me. So
Gotcha. Well, I give total props to you, and I was thrilled. It made my day. It put the biggest smile on my face. Probably, it would have been really cool if I'm sure as you guys were filming that or lifting the piano with the helicopter, those straps, I'm sure, I guess it would have made a heck of a YouTube video if that piano strap would have broken and you would have exploded a camera or the piano on the ground, right?
that would have been way cool.
That may have got more than 1 billion views as like piano drops from. So, so I'm just curious. So, I mean, you guys it's been so cool to see the success you've had. And, I'm just so grateful that I've been a little small observer and, a little small part of that. Like the music you guys do is just incredible. And, Chuck, obviously, Chuck and Al and just everybody on the team. I guess there's another lesson for any musician is how do you essentially surround yourself with the right people and find those people and hopefully recognize them as they come into your life to help that just take your music to the next level. But that's I think a big key in leveling up. But
working together, the collaboration with Steve and Paul and Al. But when we would get into the studio, when we get into the studio with Steve and Al and me, it was just so cool. It was just so cool to be able to rely on each other because Al has intuition that we relied on. And Steve has intuition that we relied on. And hopefully, I had intuition that we relied on, and just the combination of the three. And it was really miraculous.
Well, it's
Say
some of those
I have to say it was really miraculous.
when it's those special times when you realize and you kind of step back after you've spent all kinds of time working on something and you realize the idea that you came with to the studio just was made so much better
Oh
because of some
gosh.
inspiration and I think the key is as artists being willing to seek feedback and
Hmm.
kind of be moldable, like
Yeah.
I do see some artists sometimes they have this idea and they're not very easy to work with or they don't want the input, and I sometimes I think the longer I'm in this, the more you realize, boy, if you'll just even if you don't like their opinion, you should listen and
Hmm.
just
True.
it doesn't mean you have to do the thing, but
Yeah.
give other people around you the ability to give you feedback and
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
so.
It's a winner.
Well, so I know we're about out of time, but with where you've gone, I mean, you guys have toured all over the world in places you never imagined you were gonna tour. I mean, you've been on about every continent, I think now, right? Southern Antarctica. You guys haven't filmed a video in Antarctica yet, correct?
Yeah. No.
Uh, but what I guess what's new and in the works, and that you have that's coming up. And actually, before I ask you that, what's some of the best advice you've received over the years from people? Let's get that little word of wisdom from you.
Um, I, one thing that really struck me in the early days, perception is reality. Um, the way the way you package yourself, people will believe. And I think a lot of times, people that are starting out, they make the mistake of packaging themselves as a startup, and you kind of have to just, you know, package yourself like you've already arrived, and that's a leap of faith. But it's the whole idea of, stop renting high schools, start renting a Brownell Hall or Kingsbury Hall or that was really great advice. And also in the way that I designed my CD cover, um, you know, to get a professional to design it, even though I had no money and I was this dumb, young kid. I could have tried to do it really lame, but um, that was really, really great advice. Um, and also fake it till you make it. Like I used to be really nervous um, to perform, especially in front of crowds that didn't know me. And Michelle's like, if you don't learn how to be confident, this is not going to work. And so you can pretend confidence, and then it becomes true, becomes something that becomes genuine. So sometimes in life, you just got to act like you have great faith, for example. And if you keep acting like you have great faith, then it becomes more and more real. And that's how I feel about performing. I had to act like I was faithful or confident or fearless, and it has become true over the years.
Oh, they're fantastic. Well, so future projects and things that are happening with what you guys have going on. I know you guys aren't as busy creating dozens of videos and producing near as fast, but I'm curious um, where are you at? I know you guys had a message, not too long ago that kind of talks about um, where you're at, and I think some pretty great life lessons that probably could apply to a lot of people too.
Yeah, I think it's worded really well. We worked on the wording of this very carefully. Um, Says we've gotten a lot of messages lately asking if we are still doing music videos or touring. So we wanted to take a moment to share what's been going on. Life has a way of bringing my eyes, man, I'm almost 60, of bringing unexpected twists and turns. And just like life, our journey is evolving also. Some changes are happening, not just creatively, but personally. And while it hasn't all been easy, it's all part of the bigger picture. We're choosing to embrace this season, and we wanted to keep you in the loop because you've always been such a meaningful part of this journey. Steve is taking a much needed break from touring and TPG business to focus on health, family, and some special projects that we're excited to share with you. Jon is rehearsing and preparing to return to something close to his heart, solo acoustic shows. These will be more intimate, unplugged evenings with just Jon, piano, a bench, and you. Jon and Steve will still be doing Piano Guys shows together when they can. But in the meantime, check out our website for Jon Schmidt of the Piano Guys tour dates. Al is continuing to heal after a tough battle with throat cancer and is back in the studio doing what he loves most, songwriting and music production. Thank you for all of your faith and prayers that have helped him and his family through this difficult journey. Well, he got wrecked with that whole process. Paul Anderson, the partner who just can't sit still, has been hard at work with the team on building our online piano store, piano courses to be the best in the industry. He has also teamed up with some talented arrangers with contributions from Jon, Steve, and Al to bring you some new, exciting music. Test Drive from How to Train a Dragon and Ordinary by Alex Warren. We released these alongside Jon's original piano solo, Reflections Entry 82, honorable mention in our latest music pack. If you haven't had a chance to explore our latest music, visit the store or check out our piano courses. We invite you to take a moment and discover what's new at thepianoguys.com. Whether it's a full-scale TPG production or a quiet solo piano moment, our mission stays the same: to uplift, connect, and bring joy through music. So there's the polished answer to your
Polished answer.
question.
Well, it sounds to me like we need to get you up to Chuck's studio, and one of these days we need to get some people to come listen in the studio. That'd be about the coolest experience, I think, for anybody to come hear some of these songs where they actually happened. I don't know whether Chuck could let more than a couple dozen people in, but that would be an incredible thing for somebody to experience.
Well, going forward, I just feel like, if I can just be content, and I really, I read something about Donny Osmond. It was a short summary of a recent interview that he did, where he's like, you know, I'm content. I don't feel like I need to, um, I don't feel like I need to chase anything anymore. And it was so cool. And you wish that. You wish that for so many people, that you're like, like, I wish that for Taylor Swift. I do. I wish that she can someday get to the point where she's like, I am content. I don't need to chase anything anymore.
Mhm.
And from now on, just ask God, what do you want me to do today? And enjoy it. And enjoy it if it's big or if it's small. If you decrease, be content. Who cares? Like, if I cannot be content with what has happened with the Piano Guys, that exceeded my expectations 100 times. A
Yeah.
100 times. If I can't be content with that, then I have a problem. I have a problem. If I am just forever here in my 60s, wow, crap. Now AI doesn't share our videos like people used to share our videos, and it used to explode. Now AI just, you know, squelches everything. We used to sneeze and it would go millions of hits, you know? And should I just sit there and whine and just say, oh, everything's going down, everything's going down. Well, just who cares? Who cares? Just, what does God want me to do?
Yeah.
Be content. That's my future plan. And one thing I do feel is that I feel like God has provided um, creative, um, pieces of art throughout my 35 years of recording. And I feel like each time an artist, like a painter, paints a picture, it has the power to be a benefit to somebody. And I feel a stewardship to try to help people to benefit from these works of art. The things that I did before Piano Guys, nobody knows about it, relatively speaking. And I feel like if somebody found something that I feel like was a gift, an artistic gift, and they find it today, it's as if it's brand new. And if it inspires them, that is a big deal to me. If something that I created can inspire somebody, that is really exciting. I think it's really exciting if something I do makes a sad person smile, no matter what it is, whether it's if they listen to a song that I made, or whether I was able to buy somebody something in the checkout line, or throw my credit card in somebody's gas pump, whatever it is, that's a big deal to make somebody smile. And we need to have that. I think everybody needs to have that belief that it's a big deal to make somebody smile. It doesn't matter that I think so many people say, well, unless I can make 1,000,000 people smile, it's worth nothing. It's such a fallacy. It's such a fallacy. I think we need to get to the point where it's, if I can make one person smile, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. So that's like what I'm kind of praying, what can I do each day to, what does God want us to do?
Yeah.
This is a great question. It's a powerful
I
question.
So one of the biggest blessings I've had in my life has been helping some amazing people down in Costa Rica create this basically a tour company. They do group trips and help people. You want to see smiles on people's face, put them on a river raft running down a river through the jungle in Costa Rica. I mean, that's been one of the coolest things ever to see that smile. But as you're telling that story, um, in Spanish, oftentimes people will say "gracias a Dios," thanks to God. And
Cool.
I was down there, and and I think here in the U.S., I feel like people almost take the Lord's name in vain. They say, "Oh, it's just one of those that bothers me the way we say it here." But down in Costa Rica, they say "gracias a Dios," thanks to God. But as I was walking down there, this is a couple months ago, one of the guys was trying to translate it into English, and he kept saying thanks God
Mhm.
say thank you. And it was just like little things. It was one of those where he was genuinely saying thank you. Like this bird would fly by and he's like, thanks God. It was the coolest thing. And it
I
was,
love it.
and I haven't ever seen that with how people do that, but he was literally like having this like little prayer of conversation. And
That's so cool.
I've heard that. But the other thing is, I had somebody was, how when you walk around and you say, hey, how you doing? And, everybody, oh, I'm doing good. I heard the coolest answer ever. I honestly think this is probably how I feel you would answer if somebody says, how are you doing? And this person answered blessed
Oh,
and just left. It was
that's
one
awesome.
word, like mic drop, boom. I feel I'm blessed. And it's not that I'm doing good or bad. It's just blessed and recognizing, and I think as throughout this whole conversation, I think one of my big takeaways is just being grateful for the things we have in our life, both the
Mhm.
good and the
Oh,
bad, the
yeah.
struggles, the people that come in our life, both good and bad. They help shape us into who we are, and just being grateful and thankful uh, for those things and recognizing the blessings. I'm hearing that just throughout our conversation is, you have been blessed and you've been blessed to plus millions of people, but I think what's so cool is you circle that around and it's like, if I can just touch one person and make a difference to one person, that's a big deal.
Yeah,
That
it's fun.
matters.
It really is. And I think, you just it just becomes a question of, you know, being directed so that you don't wear yourself out, you know? I guess that's the biggest thing that I'm trying to figure out. But, it's so cool because Paul and Steve and Al, I feel like we're all on the same page. We want to figure out what does God wants to do. We've got health challenges, both personally and in our families. We've got all kinds of things to consider, but at the end of the day, that is something that we feel united on as the piano guys, and it has supported us. It has been an anchor for us. Um, and going forward, we feel like we're being really prayerful, and we can be totally gives a lot of peace. I think that gives a lot of peace.
Well, I just has this other thought that so one of the things I feel like with music and just in life, and I think it applies to what we just talked about. I feel like we're given these little nudgings or inspirations. I mean, you called it nudgings earlier to do something. And
Mhm.
oftentimes when we get that little nudge or the idea or the song idea that pop, a little melody that pops in our head, most people might hear a melody, but they don't go sit down at the piano and like write it down, even if it's just two or three notes. And I'm curious on your perspective of when God gives us those little moments or that little inspiration. I think he's almost in some this is just philosophy of Jason. I think he sometimes tests us to see if we'll do something with that little idea. And
Mhm.
it might be the most insignificant idea. It might be putting the smile or just smiling at somebody on the street. But if we do that, I feel like then it's almost like he could trust us a little bit more and a little
Mhm.
bit more
That's
if
cool.
you'll listen and you'll do the thing. And I'm just curious, as you've had all of these different creative things, what's your take on how I guess, God or the universe or whatever people believe, when we get that little spark of inspiration, have you seen that happen in your life where it layers on and it does level you up or adds more to it?
Yeah, I guess you're right. When you act on it, then you can you can position yourself to for it to expand.
He can give you
Maybe,
that bigger idea, right?
yeah.
The little bit bigger song.
I don't know if God ever acts upon us. He always makes us feel like we're free and that
Absolutely.
he's not acting on us or watching over our shoulder or um, and I think that's why he changes up his influence. Like he'll do it this way and then he'll do it that way and then he'll do it this way, and so you can't pin him down. You never feel like you can figure him out so that you always feel free.
But he eventually gets us there. I think all of us in our own time, and some of us choose to take longer
Yeah, yeah,
but I think what's so cool is he knows, we have kind of infinite potential,
yeah.
and he believe they like there's belief
And you're
in
never
us.
gonna run out of chances.
Right.
I'm a firm believer in that. I know a lot of people feel like there will come a time when God will say, "Um, opportunity's gone. I know you still wanna progress, but that door is closed." I just don't think that's ever gonna happen. That's my belief. I know it's not official. I don't think God has even made that very clear. I think he's left that ambiguous to kinda motivate us just in case. Help us get us to do our best. He did say, "Depart, I never knew you." Yeah, I guess some people really need to hear that because believe it or not, some people actually love evil. And those people, I think when the heart is hard, God confronts. When the heart is soft, God consoles. That's what I believe.
Yeah. Well, and he can do amazing things with every single one of us. I mean, just despite of our amazing looks and our amazing hair that we have,
Exactly.
he can do a whole lot of things that we would have never believed were possible if we're just willing to kind of be led by the hand and
But I do
um,
feel like I've been acting like I've got all this down. I do. these are just like, ideas that I'm exploring, that I'm trying to investigate and hopefully master. I feel like I've been a little pompous in like throwing out these ideas like a know-it-all, so I apologize for that, but
I think everybody's figuring stuff out, even the most experienced and knowledgeable people. I think the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know very much.
and talking is an act of trying to figure out what you think, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So,
Well, John, I think
conversing.
you've shared some amazing wisdom, for being a guy that couldn't click in the computer and do your own sheet music. You've done all right, and I think there's some amazing words of wisdom for any musician and just human being in general. I think that's what's so cool with what you guys have done is the music has been your medium that you've been able to share, but the life lessons of being just a good human being, you can't help but feel that and learn from how you guys have done things. And
I'll try to live up to that, Jason. Thanks. Same to you, man.
but thank you so much for taking time to share. Go check out the Piano Guys. If you're not familiar with these videos, you got to go look at the Piano Guys on YouTube. Their music's phenomenal. And John, I can't wait to hear some of these new projects that you're doing. And
The thing, I'm really excited. I am trying to create like if I was a painter, and I had created like 50 paintings that were sitting in my house, I would want to get a art gallery. That would be my dream, is to set up so that people walk in. What's the first painting they see? What's the second painting they see? What's the third? So I'm trying to create that on Instagram, because Instagram is the only platform. I've tried TikTok, I've tried YouTube Shorts. Instagram is the only platform that lets me do the ideal scenario. And so I would love it if people would visit it. It's my own private Instagram. It's the Piano Guys Jon Schmidt. And I just started this whole approach of, come in to my listening room. I'm going to play a little tune today that I wrote 20 years ago. And as you listen, here's the background. And it's like, just like gives the background as you're listening to a 90-second clip, which is so cool. Instagram lets me do a 90-second clip. And I know people will say, that's insane. Nobody's going to listen past 8 seconds. Guess what? I don't care. This is what I feel inspired to do. This is where I feel led. And I feel like I have a chance to help those early songs be discovered. And I feel like they were gifts. I feel like every song that we are given, that we are created with, these gifts that God has given us with, is something that can bless somebody's life. And so it's not something that's going to make me any money. I don't even know if it's going to make me very many followers, but it's what I feel I should do. So there you go. That's my passion right now.
Well, and even if it just reaches the one person it matters, and I can tell you that again, I am doing what I'm doing today because you took time to focus on me, the one. So
And now you're blessing lives, brother.
So thank you so much. John, this has been awesome. It's been so fun to catch up with you, and thank you for continuing to share your gifts and just serving others. Thank you.
That was fun. Thanks, Jason.
Hey, it's Jason here, and I hope you've gotten a lot of value out of this episode. Be sure to check out our show notes to learn more about our guest today, and if you'd like to support our podcast, there's a few things that you can do to help us grow. First, if you hit subscribe, it will help ensure that you don't miss a future episode. Second, if you'll share it with your friends on social media or send it via email or message, it helps us spread the word as well. And third, if you'll leave an honest review, it really helps with the algorithms so that other people can find our podcast. Finding success and fulfillment in the music industry is possible, and I look forward to seeing you on our next episode.